Okay, you're live.
Morning, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be doing this talk today. It's titled Lighting the Path, Leaning into Hope as a Special Needs Parent. And the reason that I want to focus on this is there are so many special needs people in our world, but because of their special needs, they are constrained in sharing who they are and what they experience. And so today I want to explore a little bit what they go through and some of the issues that matter to them, their experiences, so that we can become a little more sensitized and empathetic when we meet or see a special needs family in our daily lives. My name is Marcia Nathai-Balkissoon, and I am a Doctor of Industrial Engineering. So to have a Doctor of Industrial Engineering talk to you about special needs sounds very strange, except that industrial engineering is about systems, about structures and processes, and how you systematize the way we live and the way we work in order to do things more efficiently and more effectively. And the reason that I am passionate about special needs work is that I myself am a special needs parent. My daughter Emma became brain injured and bedridden when she was 8 months old due to a medical error. And she, we were told, would be a vegetable for life. She'd be in a vegetative state for life. So we were told not to expect anything for her. And we were advised to put her in a home if we did decide to fight to keep her alive. But something about Emma said she was fighting, and therefore we needed to start to adjust the way we thought, and the way we hoped, and the way we lived. And because of the journey that we've been on with Emma turned 9 in March this year, we have been blessed to meet many, many other special needs children, adults, parents, and families over the past 9 years. The amazing thing that we found is that no matter how varied our paths have been, no matter how varied the prognoses and diagnoses have been for our special needs children, there have been threads woven through each of our stories that have been exactly the same. And those are some of the things that I want to talk about today, because I also want to show that it is not a unique thing to the special needs community, that humanity has these threads running through as well. All of humanity lives on a continuum. It's not a special needs continuum that ends between these boundaries. It's a human continuum, and special needs resides along that continuum. So the first part of really understanding the special needs families experience is to understand exactly what they go through. And what special needs families start with is a lot of the negative side of the experience. You either have a child who, when the baby is still in the mom, when the mom is pregnant, she discovers that she is going to have a special needs child. And so the family begins to prepare mentally and even physically to care for this child. There are decisions that must be made. And sometimes parents are going to be asked, do you want to keep this child? So a lot of discussion and a lot of consideration goes into how are we going to adjust? What are our child's needs going to be? And how can we provide the safest, most supportive environment for this child who is going to have special needs when born? The other way that a child enters the world and we find out they have special needs is that the child may not have been known to have special needs. And when they are born, it's discovered. And a lot of the time, you will have a child who has cerebral palsy, or maybe was hurt during delivery, or you find that the child is born with other illnesses, as was the case with my daughter who had some problems in her heart that we did not know about. But what happened with my daughter was the third thing, that she didn't really have massive special needs until she went for a surgical procedure at age 8 months. And while recovering from that procedure, something traumatic happened due to a mistake after the surgery had already been successful. And she was so badly brain injured that she lost all of her senses and her ability to suck and swallow. And that basically made her go back to flatlining, get massively brain injured. And then we were told she's lost all of her senses and she's never really going to recover. She is going to be in a vegetative state for life. So many parents have some traumatic event happen to their child, whether that event was an accident or whether that event was an illness that happened and caused hurt to happen to the child. So generally we refer to when Emma was hurt. But what all of those incidents or events or occurrences cause is for this child to have special needs. And then the doors open to a life of special needs for this child and for the family that grows with the child and that supports this child. And a lot of negativity is experienced around this time when adaptation must happen. One of the biggest things in all of the research and in all of the practical writing on blogs and on articles done by special needs parents is the issue of isolation. Parents write how flattened they feel when they realize that suddenly their friends and family move away from them and stop coming around, stop calling, and suddenly they wonder, what is it about us that causes people to push us away? That happened for me and my family as well. And it was earth shaking for us because we came from a very close-knit, extended family scenario. And to then have found that most of the people that we were very close to in our lowest time in our lives chose to move away, chose to stay away, chose to not even make a phone call to us. We would find out months after that there were family events that had happened, but our family had not been invited. we would discover that people had visited other family that lived in the same area, and we would not even hear from them. And it was very, very painful because you start to wonder, what is it about me that's unlovable? What is it about me that pushes people away? Why don't I warrant love? And you also, in addition to doubting yourself and feeling that you are not enough, feel pain because what's happening is that you are seeing that your child, who is the most needy person that you perhaps know, is being rejected by the world. And that's very hard. So additional feelings then come up, feelings of guilt. How did I cause my child to experience this? In my case, I had questions about, did I cause this to happen because I chose this hospital to do surgery in? You have self-blame and self-judgment, but you also have external blame and judgment that people who have never known you levy on you. So we would go to hospitals or go to clinics, and the therapist would say to me, we need to give Emma the best chance she has to feel textures with her hands and with her feet. And therefore, I don't want you to put socks on her because I need her skin to be feeling everything. And so I'd take her into clinics with no socks on. And then people would walk up to me in the clinics, people I did not know, and would tell me how incompetent of a parent I was because I chose not to put shoes and socks on for my child, and how selfish and lazy I was. And I would have doctors who would tell me, you are irresponsible to think that your child will ever recover. And those judgments were hard judgments to listen to, because when you look at a doctor who is revered in our society and our culture, passing these judgments out to you, those are additional hammers against you. They really beat you down and they break you and they shake your confidence in a time when you really don't have very much confidence at all. You live in fear because your child has a certain number of issues. And chances are, over time, your child's issues are being exacerbated. People are moving on with their lives, other children born at the same time, and their parents. You see them going to the next grade and the next grade and the next grade, and chances are your child is delayed. Or in our case with Emma, your child is not just delayed, but your child is never going to go to school. Because all you want from your child is the ability for your child to make a sound. For me, the miracle was the day that Emma cried and I heard a sound while she was crying for the first time. So our life led us to, she stopped being able to sleep after the brain injury. And therefore, we lived a life where we too did not sleep. She can't turn herself. She's throwing up all of the time. She's at risk for things that could go wrong in the night. And so somebody has to wait with her. And that means that there's a lot of lifting, there's a lot of lack of sleep, there's a lot of strain. One parent works while the other person cares. And then the minute the working parent comes home, the other gets ready and goes to work. So what we've done, because we need to be able to afford care for Emma, is we've both held on to full-time jobs. But I've changed to evenings and nights as far as I can. And so my husband works in the day. When he comes home, I go to work. And I thank God that that is possible because it's not always possible for some parents. There are some amazing parents who are special needs parents and single parents as well. How a single parent does it, I don't know because I know how challenging it is with two parents who are working to be able to manage in terms of allocating the time, the energy, the money, the positivity, the everything, the planning of therapy, the carrying out of therapy, all of these things fall on the parents. And so a single parent has to be a singular machine, a really important, powerful person. So special needs parents and special needs families, because the other children in that family also go through a lot of stress. They feel tired, they feel drained, and they get burnt out because they don't get to say, let's go on a date, let's take 10 minutes off for ourselves. It just doesn't happen. And so, after about 8 years of this experience with my son, who's 14 now, with my husband, who I've been married to for 22 years now, I believe, and with Emma, who's been brain injured for 8 years now, we walked that path and we began to be able to see past the heavy, past the dark, past the painful. Those things never really go away. But when you live with them all the time, they don't decimate you as much as before. And so slowly we've been able to take stock of how much positive also exists next to these darkness elements that I've mentioned. When I wake up in the morning, my husband sleeps with them because she's now a big girl and he physically can lift her where I can. So I sleep in the room next door and my husband sleeps next to M to lift her, to turn her, and to do all the other things physically that need to be done. And when I open my eyes in the morning, I hear the birds outside the window and I hear Emma's laugh filling our house. And that laugh clues me in to an important thing, that while I see how much Emma has lost, while I see the dreams that I had for my family as having been decimated, while I've had crying sessions over the way that our lives just disappeared in a flash, in a poof, Emma never has had those thoughts because Emma is living every day to the fullest. She opens her eyes and she is joyful for the beauty of another day and the possibility of another day and the opportunity to be loved and to love her family. She trusts that everything she needs is going to come to her. And she trusts that she's going to give everything she can to the people that she loves. She has regained her sense of hearing and she has playlist after playlist from R&B to calypso. Calypso because we are here in Trinidad and Tobago, and calypso is one of our local wonderful forms of music. from pop to jazz to nursery rhymes to classical, and the list goes on and on. And she will hear you say, let's play Emma's playlist. And immediately she will squeal in delight. Emma has 5 words. It's the same 5 words that she's had for 4 years or 5 years. But once upon a time, she was unable to even make a sound. Her mouth would be open, she'd be screaming and crying, but no sound would come out. We'd see the tears and we'd see her mouth open. And we'd know that she was in such pain that she was unable to express it for us with a sound. And the wonderful, magical, miraculous thing that has happened is that Emma has learned to hear again. And Emma has learned to vocalize. And her vocalizations include a few words. She says hello. And her hello is one that says, you all have left me in this room for 5 minutes. Hello, don't forget, I need company. So that gives us joy because our child knows how to say, come to me, I need you. She knows how to say dada, and she says it all the time because dada is her favorite person. And people ask me, are you sad to know that your child doesn't call your name and that you are not her favorite person? And I can't conceive of that being something for me to feel bad about because my child knows who she loves most and my child has preference. Even though her whole brain was wiped and they didn't think she could do anything, she's doing these comparisons and she's choosing and she's communicating and we know what she likes most. So I'm blessed and I'm so happy when she calls Dada and when she trills and when she reaches out to mommy because mommy also is somebody she prefers for certain things. I'm the one who gets to horse around with her. I'm the one who gets to do the nursery rhyme action poems in See Wincy Spider and the therapies that make her laugh so she doesn't know she's doing work and she gets to play instead. So I get to fool her into thinking that work is play. And when that therapy work becomes play, we aren't dragging ourselves through drudgery anymore. We are enjoying living, being, growing, stretching, trying. And in those experiences, and in learning from my daughter how the worst thing I could imagine happened to her and she lost everything. And she became relegated to a bed and unable to see and so many other things. And yet she is not complaining, not for 1 second. She has so many medical problems and she has a lot of pain. And when those things happen, she will cry. But the minute the pain stops, she turns off the waterworks, she turns off the screaming, and she goes back to living in joy. And when I see all of these things, what she does for me and for my family is that she lights us up with hope. Because she's able to see that this life is a blessing. And that she, in living to the best of her ability, gets to share her lesson with everybody else. And so I took all of the learnings that I got from this journey with them and from Em specifically. And I wrote what I call Emma's book. And Emma's book is titled exactly as this talk was titled. It's Lighting the Path, Leaning into a Hopeful Future as a Special Needs Parent. And the hopeful future path was covered in about three-quarters of the book. All of these dark things, they started it off because you can't write a book about the experience without acknowledging the challenge and without helping the person reading to really face how they feel and acknowledge the events. But then we get to move past those things because those are just the starting block of our journey. Those things will accompany us through our whole journey. But there's more in our journey. And so, if you are a special needs parent or you are a member of a special needs family, I want to remind you that the hope part of our journey comes as we begin to delineate, to develop our whole vision for ourselves. For a while, you lose your sense of self. You forget that there was more to life because you have to give up so much of who you are and so many of your dreams. But after a while, you learn to become more resilient. You develop better coping skills. And I want to encourage you to dare to put some time aside. And the time for me didn't come in hour-long or 2-hour-long stretches. They came in 5 and 10-minute bits. While I was massaging Emma's feet, I would think about my vision for myself and for my family. That, and it was driven by this concern. My concern was what happens when Sean, my husband, and I die? What's going to happen to Emma? Where is the funding going to come from to care for her? Where is she going to live? How am I going to be sure that she's safe, that she's provided for, that she's loved? And those are some of the scariest questions that a special needs parent asks because we cannot guarantee what the future brings. But we can put what we can put into place from now. And that's why that visioning is really important. I wanted to make sure after my finances were depleted in just keeping Emma alive and doing surgery, that after Sean and I pass on, somehow there would be resources available. There would be care. There would be safety for my child who cannot speak and who cannot move. So she's practically defenseless, and that's terrifying. So I said, what do I want to have in place for her? And I began to say, financially, what am I going to put in place so that things are available for her? And the question becomes, I'm going to need a certain amount of finances. I'm going to have to make that available through some sort of system. And that means that research has to get done, that arrangements have to be made. And so I went down the road of thinking about how do I earn money, first of all? And with that came a small business that I started up, and coaching and speaking and so on that I'm doing. But how do I now invest this? How do I get insurance to support her and us? If I can't make enough, then maybe life insurance will assist. Because when I die, a certain payout will come that will give a lump sum to care for my child. Do I even know what tools exist or what systems I can establish to meter out the money, to make sure that the money is there and managed well? And so tools like a will, you hear the words last will and testament, a will that says, here's what Marcia had, here's what Marcia's family had, and it's left to, and this is how it's going to be used, and this is how it's going to be distributed. But more than that, there are tools called trusts. So I speak about some of those things in the book because I want others to know these are good options to help when we plan for the long-term care for our child. The other thing that had to come up for me was if I don't want to die soon, because I want to be around to keep Emma well and to care for Emma as best I can, then my job is to make sure I lengthen my life as much as I can and that I am physically competent to care for Emma as long as I can. And so I began to look at my health and wellness and longevity. And that meant that I had to change the choices I was making about the way I live, the quality of the food I eat, and I feed my family, the way I am active, because I tend to be a very sedentary person. My job is a sedentary job, and I love to read and I love to sing. And of course, I have to sit with my daughter all the time. So there's not so much moving that I do, except if I'm lifting and to do something. So I had to take back my health and the exploration of intentional eating and mindful eating, intentional movement, and habits that help us to live in a way that makes us well. Those things are really important as well. The other thing that came up was the spiritual learning that comes out of this journey. Something that used to happen for me, and I've spoken to so many special needs parents who have said that a version of this happens, that they feel like the rug has been pulled out from under them, and some people feel abandoned by God, and some people feel held by God. Whichever one you experience, it still is a spiritual journey. You're deciding if you accept this feeling and what this means to you and how you are going to treat with it. And so I explore some of those issues as well in a chapter of the book. The biggest thing that came up for me though, because isolation was such a heavy one, and this interaction and judgment by others and myself, was the management of relationships. And so there are three sets of relationships that I specifically talk about. One is if we have other children, how do we care for those other children so that they don't feel as if they are secondary citizens in our family, that they are forgotten, and that we are only doing what is mandatory for their care and putting everything else that we have into the special needs sibling. And the fact is that when Emma was hurt, the survival depended on us putting everything we had into it. And so 90% of time that we had to invest in our children went into Emma. And 10% went into Brian, and it really was when we had no choice, we would do the mandatory things for Brian. That has shifted, but it shifted because we saw things becoming evident in Brian. We saw this strain having an effect. We saw how much pain and anger and frustration started to bubble out of him. He spoke to a counselor and he said he felt powerless because his sister was in such pain and nothing he did could help her. And he started to physically take it out on me. because he was 7 at that time, I think, 8. And he didn't know what to do with the negative feelings because he felt that we were already facing so much negativity that he didn't want to be adding problems to our plate. And so he kept it inside until he couldn't keep it in no more and he burst out. So we had to take stock then, and we understood that change had to happen. We wanted our whole family to survive, and more than survive, we wanted our family to thrive. And families thrive when there's love. And my son wasn't perceiving that he was loved. He was perceiving that he was a responsibility and that we were fulfilling our duty, but not that we were in love with him because we were not taking the time to show him that he specifically deserved our time and our energy. So a lot of exploration has been done about how we could really help our son to thrive. We started by understanding his learning preferences and trying to help him with his learning so that learning could be enjoyable rather than mandatory. You don't want to live a cardboard life. You want to enjoy a full, tasty life, right? And I wanted to teach him that. We learned how to turn learning and turn living into something enjoyable. And so we stopped saying, sit there and read this and learn it off by heart and tell us it again, which was how we thought efficient learning happened when we didn't have time. And we began to make time to go outside and run and play and jump with him. And learning happened incidentally along the way. So we lived first and we learned as a matter of consequence. The learning was embedded in the living. And I explore a lot of those approaches in the book. The other thing for Brian was understanding the way he needed to be loved. And I learned about that when I read a book called The 5 Love Languages. And that told us that the way that one person loves to be loved is not necessarily the way that any other person is going to love to be loved. You need to understand how each individual prefers to be loved. So, for example, I may have a friend who loves to receive presents. But if you give me a present, it means much less than if you give me the present of your time. And with Brian, the two things that were most valued by him were if we gave him time. Time was so scarce because we spent all of it with him. So if we actually pressed pause on that and said, son, we're going to play a game with you, or son, come chat with me and tell me about your day. He understood that he was important and that we really, really cared for him because we were giving up the most precious resource we had, which was our time. And the second thing that we knew that Brian loved was us giving him acts of service. A simple way that this has shown up in my life is every night, my husband would say to me, Marsh, could you make me a cup of tea? That happened for about 2 weeks. And then one day, I was making him his cup of tea. And I popped my head into Brian and said, listen, I'm making a cup of tea for Dad. Would you like one? And that has become a routine now Now I pop my head in, and before I ask the question, he looks up and he smiles. And it's the brightest, brightest smile because this is mommy taking her time to come to him and say, it matters to me to give you this cup of tea. And what he receives from me is a cup of love. That has made a big difference. So it's not that we have to give huge things to anyone. It's that we have to figure out what the small things are that will make a difference to them, that will show them in some act, in some way, that they are beloved to us. That's what has made a difference to me in showing my son that his special needs sister is not the only one that I value, treasure, love. He definitely is the other love of my life. And then the third love of my life is my husband. I've heard people say that your husband should be number one on the list. I think it's different for everybody. But my significant other, the relationship I have with my husband, it got drained. The first thing that goes when we are special needs parents is our care of ourselves. Self care suffers. I'm going to talk about 5 tips to self care for self care this afternoon from 2 to 3 in the supernova room. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but self care is the first thing to go. You push yourself off your to do list first. And then the second thing that goes is your relationship with your significant other. You prioritize that less as you juggle everything else. That's been my experience. And that's been the experience of so many other special needs parents that I've spoken to. And I think maybe that explains why so many special needs parents say their relationships have resulted in separation and divorce because there's so much strain on the family unit and it's borne on the shoulders of the parents. And the parents don't have time to keep connected to one another. So the strain gets in the cracks and pushes them apart. And there's no judgment there because it's a really hard thing to stay together in the middle of crises. So rebuilding the relationship with your significant other is another thing on this huge list of what we would like to do to live more powerful lives as a special needs family. And I started with those 5 love languages already. I did that also for my love relationship. And the truth is that that is still my weakest point. I still haven't had enough time to do anything much there. Right now, Sean and I are powering through because we care about our children and we pass 2 ships in the night. We pass along the way, but we don't get to spend too much time together. That is something we intend to change. And change happens one small step at a time. We don't have to be perfect. That's the new thing that I'm learning. The aim is not perfection, it's progress. And so my new motto is progress, not perfection. Self-love, not self-judgment. And then the last of the 3 relationships that I've explored is the social slash extended family relationship. Because of this isolation I experienced, I had to reframe how I understood isolation. The people who had left us, the people who had moved away, the people who had stopped thinking that they wanted to expose themselves to our very messy family life, I finally saw as having made a choice that was good for me. If they didn't love me enough, then it was a good thing that they had left. They had edited themselves out of my life for a reason, so that people who were more appropriate, people who could truly love me would enter, and those who truly loved me would stay. And when I say me, I mean us. But I needed more than just the 2 or 3 people who had stayed and who would visit often. I needed to be seen as me. I needed to share what we were going through. And I was living in a place where I thought that if I talked about all this darkness, people would say, what a complainer she is, how incompetent she is, what a poor mother she is. She doesn't like her child. Why is she telling us all these things? And so I felt like I was being forced to be silent about a life event and a life circumstance that was breaking us all. We had to live in isolation and in silence. And that made it so much harder for me. And so I started to speak about it. And speaking about it became the chink in the door that let light in. I started to recognize that while the special needs circumstance is different from other people's experiences, the learnings that we get from the challenges we walk through tend to be similar. So people who were going through diseases that were life-threatening or that were really challenging, they were learning some of the same things that we were learning as a special needs family. And people who were facing overwhelm and bullying and judgment at work or in other areas in society, they were learning similar things to what special needs families were learning. But if we don't speak about it, we don't recognize that the themes are shared. And so suddenly I started to feel all these warm rays of light coming in and making my life feel so much better. The more I spoke about how imperfect and how hurt and how sometimes hopeless life felt, the more I started to feel resilient and hopeful. And the more I found people online who became friends. And so now I have online friends and a few face-to-face, in-person physical friends who have become really, really close, heart level friends that I treasure and that I think treasure me too. So if you can't have physical friendship, that is not the end of your chances for friendship. If you give in a heart-centered way and you connect in a heart-centered way, you will find others who reciprocate. They give and they connect in a heart-centered way too. And you make friendships that very much might be friendships for life. So those are some of the ideas that I wanted to share because all of those things are the ways that we pump up the hope in our situation. And when we can build resilience and hope, we get to look forward to tomorrow despite the challenges that we know are going to be there tomorrow. I thank you so much for listening. I hope that speaking about this has made a difference to you and gives you some support to make your own journey as a special needs parent and with your special needs family an easier, more joyful, and fulfilling one. Best wishes to you.